How is moving from the role of caregiver to the role of advocate a critical shift for a family? In that caregiver role, you are more focused on the day to day activities or the day to day care for your loved ones. For instance, you're caught up with what time they're going to eat, what time they're getting up out of bed, what time is their doctor's appointment, any activities that they want to do for the day, or planning out meals, planning out doctor's appointments, planning out just the day-to-day activities of that individual. In the role of advocate, it's a different mind shift. And I say different mind shift because you're now focused on the best care, the best resources that's available out there for your loved ones. Now, being an advocate doesn't necessarily mean giving that terrible pushback or that hard pushback. It's really gaining insight and information how to better care for your loved ones. For instance, if you are feeling like you're stuck at home with your loved one and they have some mobility issues, but they still can get out, being an advocate means that you're not just sitting at home saying, "Oh, I wish I could take my mom or dad out or my loved one." It's really digging deep and finding out what resources are out there that are accessible to you and your loved one can participate with their limitations. So being an advocate is really digging deep into finding what works. And, if you're not truly satisfied deep down inside, you have that gut feeling that, something is wrong or something is not right with your loved one, and you're not satisfied with the answers that you're getting from one physician, it's always good to go get a second opinion. And that's truly what advocacy is standing firm. So being an advocate means a little bit more than just sitting around wishing and hoping. It's really putting on your shoes, putting on your coat or what have you, and then getting out there, knocking on those doors and demanding those answers that can benefit you and your loved one. What does it practically mean to be the CEO of your loved one's care? Again, that means just taking charge. It falls in line with being an advocate, being the CEO, being the head person in charge, ensuring that you're delegating those jobs or those tasks and you're not just taking it on all by yourself, because it can get overwhelming, and then that overwhelm turns into resentment and then it turns into anger. So proper planning and taking charge and delegating what I really mean by being the CEO. Because as a CEO of any organization or any company, and advocating for your loved ones' rights and your responsibility to that individual, you don't have to do that alone. You may have heard on one of our episodes where Dr. Jessica talked about stopping, and that goes back to our give framework when we say, you want to get grounded, then initiate support. And that's part of what the CEO is initiating support and finding individuals to be on your team to help you carry out those tasks for your loved one, so you're truly feeling like you're not alone in that process of caring for your loved one. What is the single most crucial piece of information every patient's family needs to know about their rights? Is that you have rights, and you need to understand what those rights are. And in many cases where our rights are being taken away and we don't even know that our rights are being taken away. For instance, if you're in a hospital and the doctor says, "Oh, okay, well, you need home health or you need to go to a nursing home," you have a right to choose who's going to be your home health provider, or you have a right to choose what nursing home you're going to. So understand the most crucial piece of information every patient family needs to know about their rights is that you have rights. What is one power phrase or question a caregiver can use when they feel rushed or dismissed by a medical provider? For me, and everyone may not take this approach, but I would say I am the most important person in front of you right now. And I understand that you have other patients. However, I need answers and I'm going to need them now. And you don't necessarily have to say it that way. However, understand again, you have rights and you have the right to choose. And if you feel as if you're not being heard, find another provider. How can caregivers effectively communicate with doctors, nurses, and discharge planners to make sure their concerns are heard? I would say ask for a team meeting. Ask for the doctor, the nurse, and the discharge planner to give you a meeting regarding your loved one so you can get the answers and so they can communicate with you effectively about what the next steps are or what they should be. They should be able to give you that meeting 15 minutes of their time, the patient or the patient advocate, they owe you that. So I would say just plan accordingly, ask for that meeting, and if you're still not being heard, then I'm a firm believer of demanding answers. So it doesn't necessarily need to get to that point, but just ask for an appointment with all involved, the doctors, the nurse, the discharge planner, and even the social worker, because you need to understand what next steps are. Let's just say, for instance, you're not ready for your loved one to come home, or you haven't planned, or they haven't given you a date for discharge. You can say, you know what, I'm really not ready for my loved one to come home because I don't have anything in place. I'm going to need to talk to the doctor. I'm going to need to talk to the nurse to find out how my loved one was doing, or even the physical therapist to see what level of mobility they have. Are they struggling with going up and down the steps? Are they having a tough time using a walker? Ask for a meeting because they're the team. They should be able to fulfill your wish of meeting with the healthcare team. You're hearing why shifting from caregiver to advocate is a non-negotiable. If you feel powerless, you need the empower with advocacy mindset and the resources. Don't miss out on the vital support. Join our free newsletter. I'll send you the power phrases and key takeaways from this episode right to your inbox. Connect with us on LinkedIn. Join the Give a Care LinkedIn group to network with others successfully advocating for their families. All the links are in the show notes. I see you and you're not alone. Now let's get back to the discussion. What are the hard questions families often forget to ask that end up costing them later? Gosh, there's so many. Let's see how I can get through just a few of these. The first question I think we'll deal with hospital discharge. A lot of times what happens is the families just take the doctor's word as bond and they ask no questions, right? So that's the first thing. And then they get home and then they have all these questions that could have been answered by the physician or the social worker upon discharge. Ask the physician to go over what they feel your loved ones will need. Find out if there's a care plan put in place prior to discharge. Do they need follow-up care? Do they need home health? Do they need home care? If they see signs of decline, should they recommend hospice? Because hospice is a different thing. You need to qualify for that. And if your loved one is declining or is, as they say, failure to thrive, you might want to just go to the next step. So ask that tough question. What are the next steps? What should I be doing to keep my loved one safe at home? Or would it be best for them to go into a community? And sometimes physicians will say what they believe is best for your loved ones in terms of, keeping an eye on them for safety, whether it's, 24-hour care or they need an eye on them, especially if they're a fall risk, right? So ask questions. Don't leave out without asking any questions at all, because on the way home, you're driving and you're going to say, oh my gosh, I forgot to ask this question. And now it's hard to get a hold of the physician. So, and even if you think ahead of time when you're going to a meeting, think about what it looks like for them to come home and write down those questions, keep a notebook. That way you can at some point go back into your notebook and just in case you forget to ask some questions, because we get into conversations and one thing leads to another and we totally forget the reason or the purpose why we stepped in the room in the first place. Can you share an example of a time when a family successfully advocated for a better outcome for their loved ones? Yes, someone that I know that I have a relationship with, her mom had a fall and ended up in one of the local hospitals. And she later found out that her mom had dementia. And not only did her mom have dementia, she was still recovering from a fall. And so her mom wasn't in the hospital for a very long time. And the hospital said, oh, we're going to discharge your mom tomorrow. And she's like, well, how can you discharge my mom? And mom doesn't have any follow-ups, meaning that there was no rehab, there was no prescription for a nursing home, there was nothing. It was just discharge. And she called me and she said, Sharon, I'm having a tough time. My mom has dementia. She had a fall. She injured herself. And now the hospital wants to release her. And the first thing I said to her was, what is the insurance saying? Call the insurance company and see what they're offering in terms of rehabilitation, or just get some questions from the discharge planner and see what your options are. And sure enough, she reached out to the discharge planner. She also called the insurance company, but it ended up that mom did get treatment for rehab. In fact, in that hospital, because they have a rehab unit, and she stayed a little bit longer than what the hospital had planned for her to discharge. So there's a lot of times when we get calls like that with people that are frustrated or angry and just don't know where to turn and want answers. And I'm totally okay with friends and family calling and asking for advice. But I'm also that person that says, you know what, do your research also. Don't just take my word for it. Do your research and find out what's appropriate, because sometimes what may have happened or what could have happened is that there's limits on the insurance. And so maybe that time had ran out. And in fact, for her, that time hadn't ran out. It's just that the hospital needed the bed. What is the final most essential piece of advice I have for a caregiver who still feel powerless in the face of the healthcare system? I know the healthcare system can be complicated, but understand that you do have rights. Every piece of information or organization that you take your loved one to, or that you're even a part of, they have Bill of Rights, meaning that you have rights. And we all need to understand that as patients, as human beings, we have rights, and we can choose where we want to be if we feel we're not being treated with respect, or we feel like we're being dismissed because we want to, they're rushing us to get to the next person, because most physicians have a time limit where they get to be with one patient. And if you feel that that's you, I would say you have rights and move on. This episode proved it. You are the CEO of your loved one's care. Empower with Advocacy is your roadmap to control. Here are 2 immediate actions. Claim control. Stop feeling powerless. Immediately find and review the patient's Bill of Rights. Know your rights so you can defend your loved ones. Subscribe and share. If the CEO mindset helped you today, subscribe to the Give a Care podcast. Help us pass this power to every caregiver who needs it. Thank you for choosing to lead with confidence. We'll talk soon.